Let's talk about Duda collections and dynamic pages. They're a really great feature that Duda has, and we're going to go into what they are, why they're so important, and then ultimately I'm going to show you how to use them through a tutorial. Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support. You guys have been crushing it. So there are collections and dynamic pages. You can't really have one without the other. The collections are the place you hold the data, and the dynamic pages are where you lay that data out. Now that might sound a little bit confusing, so let's go into that a little bit more. There's something called a content management system, or a CMS. You might have heard of it. And it allows you to manage very similar pieces of content with ease. So if you're creating a bunch of pages like an About Us page and a What We Do page, those are very different pages. But if you're creating different team pages, you're going to have very similar pages. The only thing that's different are going to be the people you're featuring on those pages. So one page you might have a designer, their image, their biography, and then another page you might have a salesperson, their image, their name, their biography. So the layout of the page is going to be the same on every single page. It's just a matter of swapping out the data. So you can already see why this might be so important, but let's touch on it. There are two main reasons. The first one is maintenance. It's really a lifesaver to only have to design the page once, which is what this enables you to do. So you get to design the page one time, and then you have another place where you manage all of that data. So you put all of the team members in one section that doesn't care about the design. We'll look at it, but it looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And then the template or the dynamic page is where you get to lay that data out, and it'll dynamically switch based on which URL you're looking at. So the maintenance is going to be a really key thing. It's very easy to change your design. So if you're only using one design for 10 different team members and you want to update it, it's very easy. You only have to do it once. But if you are using one page for every single team member, then it's going to be 10 times the amount of work. And a note on that, to Google and to the internet, they can't see that this is all one template, and it wouldn't really matter to them if they could. So you're actually getting 10 pages output, but you're only having to design and maintain one, and then through the collections where that data is stored, it'll dynamically change out that data. Each page will have its own URL, and you'll have 10 unique pages to the internet. Now, the next big area in the maintenance section is being able to add pages. So it's super easy to go into the collection and add data to it without having to mess around with the design of the page or anything like that. So that's the maintenance section. The next big area that the dynamic pages and collections save us in are overview grids. So you have one page for each team member. I'm using team members as an example, but there's a lot of different ways you can leverage this. You have one page for each team member. What happens on the About page if you want to show a little overview grid of your team members, and then they can click into the individual member they want to look at to read more, learn more about them. If you weren't using collections and dynamic pages, you would have to basically duplicate all that info. So you're creating an individual page for each team member, and then for that overview grid, you would have to just basically copy, paste their name and create an overview grid and their pictures and all that. And then what happens is if you want to remove somebody or add somebody, you're duplicating all of the effort, so that ties into the maintenance part. So the two big areas, just to summarize, are the maintainability and then being able to create overview grids, which kind of ties into maintainability as well. All right, that is the what and the why. Let's talk about the how. This is a graphic from Duda. I just want to breeze over this quickly. It's an excellent way to depict what's going on here. So on the left, you have the collections of data, and then on the right, you have your one template, but based on which row you're looking at, each row corresponds with like an entire page, basically. The page will dynamically swap with that data, but it has its own unique URL. All right, so what we're going to do is first take a look at a page built out in Duda that's just a regular page. There's no dynamic page or collections tied to this. And I'll just kind of demonstrate the problem that we were seeing before. So we've got a page. We're going to be going over the highest grossing movies of each year. And I've made this page super basic for 2021. And say if we wanted to do 2020 without dynamic pages or collections, you would go into the page, you would duplicate it. And this is easy. This is not a maintenance issue at all. When we do 2020, and then we go in here, and now it takes a little bit more work, but we got to change this to 2020. We would have to change the title, the image, and then all of these stats under the movie. But now what happens if we want to make a design change and say we want to bold the year? Well, I have to do that here, and then if I go back to 2021, that's a completely different page, so I'd have to do that here as well. So that really adds up quickly. I'm going to get rid of the 2021 and stick with 2021. So in this case, I already have a page that's built, and I want to convert it into a dynamic page, and we can do that by clicking the cogwheel and saying convert to dynamic page. I don't have a collection yet, so I'm jumping the gun a little bit here. Let's create a collection and let's go over this. So there are different types of collections you can make. An internal collection is what we're going to be using, and it's basically an Excel spreadsheet that's built into Duda. An image collection is very handy if you have a lot of images you want to feature. I use this when we're doing awards because we want to feature awards on different parts of the site, and anytime we update the list of awards, we want it to syndicate throughout the rest of the site. Google Sheet, you know what that is. Let's talk about some of the advantages, I guess, or disadvantages. It's not easy to manage images in Google Sheets because you can't really upload an image. You have to like reference a URL. So if you're using images, Google Sheets is not the answer. I typically don't use Google Sheets for this, but if you're already using a Google Sheet for something else and you want to integrate it into your Duda site, then that might make sense to use that. I do like using Airtable because you can manage images through them, and they have just a very built out Excel spreadsheet, I guess you can say. So it's like Google Sheets, but kind of on steroids. So you can manage images, and it's really easy to filter data and sort data and stuff like that. External databases, that's a little bit more advanced, and you have to be on the enterprise plan to have that. I don't even have this yet. Oh, by the way, you do have to be on the agency tier for the most part to have access to this. You can be on the tier right below agency, which is team. Let's go down to here, but you have limited access. You can only create one collection and up to 10 rows. The agency tier, you have like full access to all this. So why choose between internal collection and Airtable? I guess for internal collections, it's like an all-in-one solution. It's all within Duda, so it's very easy to manage permissions or onboard a client. For Airtable, if you need a little bit more advanced sorting or filtering options and you want to lay out your data differently, then Airtable can be the better bet. For right now, we're going to go with internal collections. So we're going to create a new one. We're going to call this top grossing movies, and we're going to create the different items here. So each row corresponds with one unique page, and then every column is basically a field that you want on that page. So I'm going to go ahead and build this out. You have different field types. Go over all of these just so you understand what's in there, because they're going to affect how you're able to lay out your data, and they are changing too. So they just recently added the multi-select feature, and these are really handy to be able to control the data that goes in there. So if you're looking for a video, you can only put a video in there. You can't put like just some random text in there. For the movie, we're just going to do plain text. Oops. And you can rename these, that's fine. Now I'm selecting plain text. Rich text allows you to like bold, and we can just show you what it looks like here. So it allows you to have all of this stuff. That's going to mess you up though, unless you need those features. So as you saw in my design, it was I just need the distributor to print out, or the genre, and I don't want to mess with the formatting at all. So it's important to keep these plain text. I could do number here. Let's see what happens with number. I'm not too familiar with it. It is going to be a dollar amount I want. So I think I'm just going to have to do a plain text field, but we can use this as an example if we need to convert it. And then the item is going to be the URL. You can use a different field for the URL, and I might show that later, but for now, I don't really need the item to be like numeric or anything like that. So we are just going to fill this in with what we want the URL to be. And this is just the last part of the URL. So say if we want like the URL to be like your domain /movies/ the individual movie name, the movie section is going to be defined somewhere else. And this is just whatever's unique about this one page. All right, now I'm going to fill it in with data. I'm only going to do a few rows. All right, forgot year. Let's put that in there, and now let's fill it in with data. So you can see it's not taking the number because it has a $sign. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this without the $sign. Yeah, the number is not going to, I want all the formatting to be in here. So what I'm going to do is convert this to a plain text field and then be able to paste in my full number that I want. I'm just going to clean this up and delete any of these like empty rows. We don't need those, and that might cause adverse effects. All right, so now we've got our data. I'm just going to look over this. We got movie, genre, distributor, total for year, rating, and then we're going to give these each a title, or rather a URL. I'm just going to make this fast and do Shang, Bad Boys, and Avengers. Each one of these needs to be unique. All right, now that we've got that, we can exit out of here. And I don't know where it left us off when we were converting, so we have to like reconvert this. So convert to dynamic page. We're gonna connect it to our top grossing movies and then click done. Now, if you didn't already have a page, just click new page, and then the second section here, add a dynamic page, you click blank or whatever if you want to use one of their templates, and then connect it to the collection that way. All right, now you can see we have a symbol here which shows this is a database icon, so it means it's connected to the collections. And then this is hidden on all because this page itself doesn't have a URL, but when you're viewing one of the rows, it has a URL. So we're gonna back out of there. And now we're gonna be able to connect all of this. And I forgot the images. Let me go back to, so the way you get back to collections is content, collections, and then in here, I'm gonna add movie cover, and then set this to an image, and then add all the images, be right back. All right, movie cover's added. Now what we're going to do is convert the dynamic information, the information we want to change in this template, to connect to the data in the collection. So 2021 is going to be dynamic data. We don't want that to be hard-coded. What we do want hard-coded is highest grossing movie in, because that stays the same between every single row. Another note on this, when you're thinking about creating dynamic pages and collections, you need to find basically the least common denominator between all of the pages, meaning what do every single page have in common, and then use that as your templated data. If there's something that changes between some of the pages, for example, this one has a link to, view it on Netflix, but every movie's not on Netflix, then you can't really use dynamic pages and collections. It's one of the limitations and one of my complaints about it, because it's not always realistic that every single row is going to have the exact same information, or at least, the same column information. Some of them might have a Netflix link and some of them won't. So keep that in mind and make sure that when you are doing this, you're able to make sure that every single column is going to have data in it. If you have one without data, it's going to say like this is a placeholder on the live site, and you can't get rid of that. I wish it would just dynamically show up if it were existing and not if it didn't exist. But anyway, so let's go over here. So there's two ways basically to connect this information to the collection. The first one is inline here. And what we want to do is do the curly bracket, and then that opens this window. And it says now we can connect the data to a column in our collection. So in this case, we're going to do year. That formatting looks a little bit weird. I hope it doesn't stay like that. We'll see. And then this is going to be the movie title. So we could do the bracket, or what we can do is click this button here. Or what we can do is, because it's the whole thing and it's not like one word or one year within the sentence here, we can right click and say connect to data, and it'll connect the entire text to whatever we want. So this is going to be the movie, and then we're going to click done. The formatting's looking a little bit weird. I don't know if I've used connected data in the flex sections yet, but we're going to figure this out here. But we're just going to keep going right now. Right click on the image, connect to data, and then this is going to be the movie cover. You'll notice too, it understands the types of fields that you have, because when I connect this data, only the image field shows up because it says you're connecting data to an image. That means the data type of your collection column has to be an image. So we're going to select that. And then we're going to connect all of these too. So when it's the entire thing, and it's not just like one little part like the year in it, I prefer doing the right click, connect to data, and doing it this way. So we've got the rating. All right, minus the formatting, that's a lot of it done. So now what we can do is up here in the top left, instead of it being a page switcher when you're in a dynamic page, it's the row switcher. So you can see that it pulls in that first column between all of the different rows. And now we can click the different ones and we can see it'll swap out the year, the name of the movie, the image, and then all of this information. Now it did screw up the formatting, so I guess it wants me to go back in here and say, select all, this is 30. Some of this is still a little bit buggy, or I might just be missing some of it, but I want to change this to an H1, and I'm not seeing where to do that. And so in this case, I might want to disconnect this. So I'm gonna connect to data and then say disconnect. And then here's my H1. So I like this editor better. So maybe I'm gonna do it this way and say, connect this to the movie. And then it looks like it's keeping the format that way. And then for whatever reason, it doesn't swap out right away. Flex is still a little bit buggy, but we can do it that way. And then switch between them. Boom. I'm not going to mess with the formatting on these bottom ones right now, just for the purpose of this video. You can see that this works, and this is like a really solid way to manage information. And then now we only have one template, so any design changes we want to make, anything we want to add or remove, we can do to this one template. And then if you want to add any rows or information, all you do is you add it to here, and then it's automatically available on your website. So that brings us to the next point of like, how do we access these pages? Because as you can see, this isn't added to the menu because it's not useful without going to a specific URL. That brings us to the overview grid. So let's go to the homepage or just anywhere on the site, and we're going to add a gallery that seems appropriate because we have images. For this, what we're going to do is right click, connect to data. We only have one collection, top grossing movies. And then here we map things. So we say image, it automatically selects the image because it knows that's the only image. The title, we're going to do the movie. The description, because we're doing top grossing movies, let's do how much it made. That seems important. The link is automatically going to go to that dynamic page. So you don't need to do anything. It just knows how to get there. And then if you don't want it to link, you can do none. But for us, that's not useful in this case. Alt text will do the movie, and then link text. This is also another annoying thing. I wish like you can just make this default so I can just say like view movie, but you can't. It has to be something. If you ever want to do that, you can create a new column in your collection and just say like view movie, and then it's the same data for every single row. Seems a little bit ridiculous for that, but that's how you can do it. I guess we'll do none, and you can just click the image. So we'll edit the design and have the information always available there. Preview. Give a second for these to render out. Perfect. And now if you see in the bottom left, it says /new page /bad boys. If we click that, we're taken to our dynamic page. We can see this one has R. We know it's dynamic 2020. These are the dynamic connected data icons, by the way. But as we saw, it said new page. I don't like that. So that's where we go to the cogwheel and say SEO or like whatever, just to get into this menu. Here's where we can change it. So let's say movies, and then, whoops, and then it says page item. So that's going to be whatever that column 1 was in our collection. And then we also want to do page title and page description. Like my agency and everybody really should be doing SEO all the time. And so what we always do is we add an extra column and we'll say page title and page description in the collection. For now, I'm just going to show you the page title is going to be movie, and page description, I'm just going to put the year, but obviously you're going to want something a little bit more in depth than that. And that's all you really need for this. We can see it says /movies/Shang in the very bottom left hand. Perfect. All right, let's talk about one more feature here, and then I want to touch on some limitations. All right, so say if we want to create different sections on here, and we want like a for kids section, or I guess let's not make assumption about what ratings are for kids. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and then add a couple titles here. And then we're going to say rated R. I wish there was a duplicate button. Save a step there, and then rated PG-13. All right, this is a really cool feature. So now that we have the overview grids, let's right click for connect to data. Let's do change connection. And in here, there is a filter and sort option. This was released like mid 2021, I believe, and this is very, very powerful. So first of all, you can select how many items you want to display. That's not an issue for us here, but who knows, maybe this list is going to grow a lot. So let's do good practices and say it looks like 4 items are going to fit in a row here. So let's do 44 filters. This is the important one. So for here, we're going to do the rating is equal to R. And now it's only going to pull in R movies. And there's only one right now, but it's good to think about how the website's going to advance. And as it advances, let's do total for year. Actually, I think that'll work. I'm just wondering because it's got the $sign, but we'll do descending because we're doing like highest grossing movies. So that seems appropriate. And then here, we're going to do the same thing. You can also click on it and then edit, filter, and sort. We're going to do 4 here as well. Filter by the rating, and then this needs to be PG-13. And then we'll do this by the total for year, descending. All right, cool. So now you can see that we're able to filter our data out and get only the R movies here and the PG-13 movies here. Super, super handy feature. There's a lot of reasons you might want to use this, and I'm super glad Duda added this. All right, let's touch on limitations. Very important to understand because you don't want to put too much work into this to realize that it's not going to work for you. So I already touched on this one, but say we're going to do Netflix link, and this is going to be a link. I'm just going to use like a random link here. And so we'll do everything but the Avengers will have the link, and then go back to our dynamic page. And then we're going to add a button. Watch on Netflix. And then for here, we're going to right click it, connect to data, link to Netflix link, and good. So done. And then we did everything but, so that's the link I put in. And now we're going to switch over to Avengers. And now it just doesn't go anywhere. I guess it goes to google.com, which is weird. I guess that's Duda's fallback. But as you can see here, I did not enter Google into the last one. Let's add a different field and just say test. Hi, bye. And then Avengers is also going to be missing out on that. Here, we're going to connect this text to the test. I don't know why it pulls up that one, probably just because on the load. So we've got hi. And there, the first ones were weird. This makes sense though. So it says this is a placeholder and won't appear on the live site. However, it will appear on the live site. I believe it just says like placeholder or something like that. So I wish it would just dynamically hide if you didn't have that data. So make sure you do have every column filled out when you're doing this. If not, you have to have some sort of fallback options. Next up, let's talk about limitations as far as the fields go and the rows. So you could have up to 200 rows. This was 100 recently, so it looks like Duda's expanding this as the need arises, but pay attention to that. You can have 50 fields, which are basically columns, and then view all of the rest of these too to make sure. I haven't run into issues with these. Maybe the text character limit, 4,500 is pretty big, but yeah, just take a look at these. I'll have this internal collections document linked below. And lastly, you can't do relational content, which basically it would be nice if you were if you had two collections, say if you had locations and doctors, and you want it to link the doctors to what locations they practiced at. It would be nice to be able to do that, because then on the location pages, you would be able to pull in all of the doctors that practice at that location. And then on the doctor page, you would be able to pull in all of the locations that the doctor practices at. Anytime you're reviewing a website and you see a topic come up over and over again, or rather a piece of content come up over and over, that should be your kind of smell test to figure out that this is a candidate for dynamic pages and collections. But you also want to go through the limitations and make sure that all of the data that's going to be present is present on every single row, and there's not going to be, some one-off like Netflix link on one of them. So pay attention to that. But if you can use dynamic pages and collections, do it. It makes your website way more maintainable and faster to build. So take advantage of dynamic pages and collections within Duda. I'm really glad I got to do this video, because this is a little bit more of the advanced piece of Duda, but a very important one. If there's anything I missed or you guys still have questions about, feel free to drop a comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you. And I just want to thank you guys again for all of your support, for watching until the end. That's a big help. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.